I want to talk a little bit about being different. And can I see a show of hands? Everybody in the audience that feels like you are different than other people, put up your hand. Let me see who you are. Come on. Come on, you're different. Do you feel like you're different? Put up your hands. Look around the room. Look at now. Look, hey, people are starting to put their hands down. Oh, keep them up. You know the guy that's different. Look on the back row. See that guy? His head is up. That was texting. You know he's sitting there texting while we're having this lecture. He's the one that's different. No, seriously. All my life I have felt different, and that can be good. It can be bad. I mean, when I was growing up, it was an issue because I didn't fit in. I was the one that was observing. I was the one that was drawing conclusions. I was the one that was scribbling notes. And I mean, it's a curse. But by the same token, once I came to grips with the idea of being different, uh, it was good. It was something that I liked, and I'm different today. I mean, I'm standing up in front of you, so I'm different from you. Otherwise, you'd be up here. And that's not to say that someday there will be people within this audience that are giving presentations like this. Um, Being different is a good thing, but being different has its downside. And what really gets me is how people talk about you behind your back. They discuss you, they draw conclusions about you, they think they know what you're thinking, they think they know what you're planning to do or have done, and they won't confront you, they won't talk to you, they won't ask you straight up, well, what are you thinking? Um, they would rather dance around it. And that's a very bizarre feeling. And you don't get that unless you're different. You know, if you're different, then people tend to talk about you and draw conclusions about you. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. The danger is that they don't know what they're talking about. They don't have the full information. They don't have the total picture. And so um, they're drawing conclusions that are inaccurate. And that's a real danger that we all face as we go through life. You don't want to look at a situation and simply say, oh, I know what's going on. No, no. You need to ask what's going on. You need to have communication. You need to be speaking to people to determine what it is they're planning or thinking about. And I know all of you that have kids, you know that your kids don't always tell you what they're planning. Sometimes you can read between the lines simply because you've been there. You've done that. You know exactly what they're thinking because that's what you used to think. But don't draw the conclusion that they're going to do exactly what you did because they're unique human beings. Just like everybody else in your life, they're unique human beings, and don't jump to conclusions. If you have friends and you make conclusions that are inaccurate, then that can hurt those friendships, and there's no reason for that. It's much better to sit down and talk about it. And most of the problems that we have in the world today, in terms of disputes, is because of lack of communication. If we talk about things, if we find out how we feel about things, it's amazing how we all have such common ground. And it's better to dwell on the common ground than it is to dwell on those differences that we're going to have. All of us are going to have differences. Nobody's alike. And, you know, it's amazing in looking at the audience before, I would judge, you know, without counting, that about 50% of you put up your hand saying that you're different. Well, I would conjecture to say that you're all different. 100% of you are different. We are all each unique human beings. And if in your quiet moments, I think you can reflect and you can see and feel that. Now, statistically, psychologically, We fit profiles, and that's why the science of psychology is successful, because people are very predictable because they do fit profiles. But don't draw conclusions based upon the masses and apply it to the single individual, because you're going to be wrong a lot of times. You look at a particular individual and you say, oh, he's going to behave like everybody else. Well, that may not be the case. And look how wrong you could be. Look how hurtful you could be because you are not considering that that person is a totally unique individual. And you know, it's one of those kind of deals that it's better to simply go to somebody and ask than it is to guess and be wrong. Why don't we do that? We live in a world with such advanced communication, and yet we have so little communication. Why is that? Why is it that we have this technological ability to literally talk around the world anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? We've got the ability to see people on the computer, to Skype, to see people on the computer and be in other countries. And yet we don't communicate. And I think the reason we don't communicate is because as a race, we've forgotten how. We've forgotten how to ask questions and listen to answers and talk. And oh gosh, one of the things I hate the most is texting, because in texting, the nuances of emotion are left out. You know, if you want to shout, you do capital letters or exclamation points or slammers, as we call them in journalism. But what do you have between upper and lowercase and all uppercase? There, in communication, person to person, and in language and in voice, and in eye movement and in physical contact, there are tremendous nuances in the way we communicate. But that doesn't exist in the text world. It doesn't exist in the email world. It doesn't exist in letter writing. It does not exist in the written word the way it exists in the spoken word. And so we make mistakes and we draw conclusions that are wrong. And being different, people make dramatic mistakes about us, because some of us are not predictable, or not as predictable. I guess everybody's predictable to some extent, but we're not as predictable. And so consequently, if you're truly different, if you're unique, if you are a special human being, and I think in a sense all of us are, but if you stand out, if you don't fit the norm, the bell-shaped curve, if you're part of the tail on the curve, you're going to be misunderstood more often than the people that fall in the middle. And I can tell you from personal experience that it can be very damaging. I don't know if people who aren't different understand what it's like to be different. Um, you can talk about it, and I guess that's the point. If you don't understand the shoes that a person walks in, then sit down with them and try on their shoes. Look at the perspective, where they're coming from, what they believe in, what experiences they've had, what trials and tribulations they're dealing with. Try to understand them. And, you know, this is nothing more than diplomacy. Diplomacy between nations. You don't just run out there and assume that everybody is like you. You have to recognize that there are those differences. I like to talk about anthropomorphism and autopomorphism. You've all heard the term anthropomorphism. This is where we take the word anth, meaning man. We try to take man's traits and project those onto animals. So, you know, you look at a dog and say, oh, he's smiling, he's thinking, he's having fun, he's enjoying laying in the sun. We don't really know that because we don't talk to dogs. But we anthropomorphize. We take human emotions and we project those onto those animals. Well, some years ago, I came up with the concept of autopomorphism. Auto meaning self. Think about it. A dog looks at a human being, and through the dog's eyes, maybe he thinks that humans are dog-like creatures. I tested this out years ago when I was an animal trainer, training dogs that would sniff things. If you take your arm and you meet a dog and you wave it, kind of mimicking a wagging tail, that dog will instantly like you. And you can do other things, like you can lean over with your shoulders and stamp your feet in a play-like fashion, mimicking their play stance. Then you can get dogs to bark and wag their tail and jump around and have a good time because they're reading you as another dog. So they're autopomorphizing that you're a creature just like themselves. Well, you can do this with animals. You can actually do it with other human beings from different cultures, different races, different backgrounds, and so on. And that's one of the reasons I've had no trouble going into different cultures and picking up on it. Different socioeconomic status, I can jump right in. It helps if you dress similar to them, or you don't give yourself away as being from a different socioeconomic class. But by the same token, you can move in and out of these cultural differences if you will autopomorphize, see them as they see you. So your differences then can kind of be reduced, and that's good toward communication. But bottom line, differences are good. I mean, I'm glad we're all different because if we weren't, we'd all be dressed the same and it would be very, very boring. But on the same token, when you know people in your lives who are different, don't judge them. Don't tell them when they're angry. Don't tell them what they're thinking. You don't know until you sit down and ask them. And maybe somebody you know extremely well, you think that you can predict exactly what they're thinking. You don't necessarily know because things change, and you don't know what's built up inside of them. So cut them a break and spend some time communicating in the verbal, the physical, the eye contact ways. You know, ditch this business of texting and emailing. You know, those are such a poor way to communicate. Voice communication over the telephone is infinitely better than that, but that's not as good as face-to-face contact.